Good evening, everyone, and everyone online at a later date. Shalom, and we just want to welcome the Most High to be a part of when two or three are gathered in His name, in Yahweh's name, that He is in the midst of us, and always faithful to give me song to an ancient text. So this is Psalm 99 in the Septuagint, which is the famous, renowned Psalm 100 in other scripture. And so here we go. Once you get the hang of it, sing along. Together, make a joyful noise. Make a joyful noise. Make a joyful noise. Make a joyful noise. Here we go. Make a joyful noise. Yahweh, all the earth, make a joyful noise, make a joyful noise, make a joyful noise. To Yahweh, all the earth, make a joyful noise. So roar with gladness, come before His presence with exaltation, with exaltation. I say hallelujah, I say hallelujah. Sometimes I wish I was created with more hands, but I don't have them. So someday King David and I are going to jam together. We all are. We all are. Adore you, and we just magnify you, and I just ask that you will just continue to be among us, fill us with your Ruach, continue to just draw us deeper And we want to just know you more. We want to go deeper into your truth. Help us to be walking on your path and to be led in your ways. Thank you for the fellowship time we have together to do that, to worship you and to seek you. In your name, Yahweh, through the blood covenant of Yahusha. Amen.
Thank you, Yah, for today. Thank you for the sun that came out anyway. Thank you for waking up and getting us through the day. Thank you for bringing us here tonight to hear about your ways. So thank you, everyone, for once again being part of the TeamD scripture study. And tonight we are in Genesis chapter 23. And the title of this one, I Need That Plot. And there's no coincidence that today is the 23rd of the month, and we are in Genesis 23, so that was not planned.
I actually knew they were coming. Oh, you did? I actually just knew. Yeah, I did.
So as we get ourselves together, the headline for tonight is Taking Over the Land. And there is so much happening, and it's no coincidence that at the point of putting together the study, many of these things were happening.
Okay. The Israeli election cycle is tentatively concluded with the current outcome same as the previous earlier this year. Deadlock. The current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, made some bold promises to the Israeli electorate to garner support from a broad spectrum of the Jewish population. One of those promises was to annex some sections of the so-called Palestinian lands into Israel if he won an outright majority.
So this is Netanyahu. The headline is Netanyahu vows to officially annex Hebron. And this is by David Sidman from September 16, 2019. After hinting at reconquering Hebron in his speech several weeks ago, the Prime Minister made it official. Netanyahu will annex Hebron and Kiryat Arba following elections. In an interview with Ifi Tiger on Army Radio's Good Morning Israel program, Netanyahu announced his intention to reassert Israeli sovereignty over the city that Abraham originally purchased from Ephron the Hittite.
Breaking Israel News highlighted in a previous article the significance of such a move, as Rabbi Hochbaum explained that any Jewish leader of Israel who wants to reestablish the Davidic kingdom in Jerusalem must first connect to Hebron. King David understood that before he established an eternal kingdom in Jerusalem, he needed to be connected to his roots, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rivkah, Jacob and Leah. He established his kingdom in Hebron for 7 years before going up to Jerusalem. Without roots, there can be no future. The roots of Judaism and the Jewish people are in Hebron. As stated in the article, the section of land to be annexed is Hebron, the site of the first family of Israel burial. Taking this land can have some geopolitical consequences for everyone. This plan is close neighbors of Israel voicing concerns about the policy.
And this is Jordan, Egypt. The headline, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq leaders reject any attempt to annex Palestinian land. And the king holds trilateral summit with Sisi, Salah, on the sidelines of the 74th United Nations General Assembly session, and this was taken from today. Okay, so this is from the Jordan Times, so it's from Amman. His Majesty King Abdullah, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and Iraqi President Barhan Salah held a trilateral summit in New York on Sunday that focused on the importance of bolstering coordination among the three nations. And I skip through all the rest and get to the meat of the topic. The three leaders reaffirmed their support for a comprehensive political solution to the Palestinian cause that guarantees the rights of the Palestinian people, foremost of which is their right to an independent, viable Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, based on a two-state solution, international law and relevant UN resolutions and the Arab Peace Initiative. The leaders said resolving the conflict is the only way to ensure peace in the region, urging the international community to take action to put a stop to the building and expansion of illegal settlements, as well as all unilateral measures aimed at changing the historical and legal status quo in Jerusalem and its Islamic and Christian holy sites. They called for condemning any attempt to annex occupied Palestine land, according to the statement.
At about the same time, the annexation statement was made by Prime Minister Netanyahu. An oil field that was burning in Saudi Arabia was trending. Drone strikes on oil facilities were Yemen's reciprocal response for Saudi bombings, Rouhani. And this was on the 16th of September. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said recent drone attacks on Saudi oil infrastructure were a proportionate Yemeni response to years of daily bombings carried out by a Saudi-led coalition. Speaking to reporters in Ankara following three-way talks between the presidents of Turkey, Russia, and Iran, Rouhani suggested the drone attacks were a legitimate act of self-defense. On a daily basis, Yemen is being bombarded and innocent civilians are dying, so they have to retaliate, Rouhani said, while Russia's President Vladimir Putin said the drone attacks had not been discussed at Monday's meeting. He noted the humanitarian catastrophe in the country and urged a diplomatic solution to the conflict. With that region in war, an act of annexing land, though a legitimate claim can be made, would draw the entire area into a wider conflict beyond what is happening in Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Iraq, etc. There is most likely Israel would have a new prime minister who may steer Israel down a different direction.
So this is Netanyahu 55, Gantz 54, as President Ruth Van Revlin concludes consultations.
And that's on the September 23rd.
And this is today as well.
Yeah.
So President Ruth Van Revlin is set to meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Blue and White leader Benny Gantz at 6:30 p.m. to announce which of them will form the next government. After completing his consultations with all 9 political factions represented in the incoming Knesset, which is set to be inaugurated next week, President Ruth Van Revlin emerged to thank the media for its attendance, but explained that he still had not finished the process of giving a mandate to one of the 2 main candidates, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu or Blue and White leader Benny Gantz. For this reason, he refused to answer questions before meeting with Netanyahu and Gantz on Monday night, saying that whatever answer he gave to any questions would provoke another question.
Or maybe not, as it seems that the 2 men are in talks for a unity government with a power-sharing arrangement to be established. At this moment, having political uncertainty and no appetite for a 3rd general election in 1 year is not in anyone's best interest in pushing an agenda forward. Whether Hebron is annexed, the region is bracing for change. Though war is inevitable, Hebron would one day be back in the hands of Israel. Though the efforts of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, spelt here, through his anointed one, restoring the property of Abraham, which is rightfully his.
So it's nobody's but the Most High's and Abraham. So when that time comes, the rightful owner would get the land, and the children of it would guarantee that it was indeed sold to him. So that passage, that whole narrative fits into the Bible study tonight. But before we get into that, just a reminder that these are the points which govern how we facilitate this gathering each and every session that we have. And I added a new one. We should always have respect for each other. And eventually I'll elaborate on that a little bit more in terms of having it in the presentation. Because we are not here to fight or determine which doctrine is the correct one. We're here to learn.
We're here to present information.
And we're here to present information. At the end of the day, we all have a personal responsibility to go and verify and make our own informed decisions.
Yes, by the power of the Ruach.
Right, so we are in Genesis chapter 23, verse 1 and 2.
And the life of Sarah was 127 years, and Sarah died in the city of Arbach, which is in the valley. This is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And Abram came to lament for Sarah and to mourn.
So this is how that whole news cycle fits into the Bible study. The location is Hebron, where everything is taking place. So I'm going to try and recite a little poem here in the Trinidad and Tobago vernacular. Yeah. Yeah. Mama Sarah gone. She gone. She close she eye and now wake up. Mama Sarah wake up. God, do we that now? What we go do now? She gone. She gone. People would react like that back home when somebody they love dies, and in a sorrowful, mournful way. So here Mama Sarah is gone. She closed her eyes, and we know Abraham is here to mourn. No person is immune from the sting of death. Sarah's life has come to a fruitful end, and Abraham is left distraught about the situation. His love for Sarah is rock solid. She is beautiful and matured as a fine-aged wine. Given the lifespan of both Abraham and Sarah, they have been together for a very long time, weathering many incidents and staying together through it all. Abraham is a man now filled with sorrow, tears of love and pain for the woman who was truly the side rib of his life. So this is from Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 and 2.
To all things there is a time and a season for every matter under heaven. A time of birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what has been planted.
By today's standards, Sarah lived a very satisfying age, but her husband is still affected by her departure from life. After all, he is, and you can put whatever you want there because we have to be politically correct now. So you can say he was human, he was man, whatever, just fit it in.
We don't have to be.
I'm just kidding. I'm not politically correct. Okay, so continuing with Mama Sarah, the wife of Abraham, the servant of Elohim.
It seems that Abraham maintained 2 homes in the land of Canaan. From Genesis 22, after the Isaac incident, Abraham made his way back to Beersheba, where he dwelt, whereas in this chapter it states that Sarah is in Hebron.
So this is from Genesis 22:19, which we just concluded. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba, and his wife is in Hebron. So there from the little map, you see where Beersheba is to the south and Hebron is to the north. Now, in quotes, rabbinic tradition has it that Sarah was distraught with the incident concerning, in quotes, the binding of Isaac, and life was no longer the same for her after that incident.
We don't emphasize rabbinic tradition.
We don't agree with that. Just for the sake of transparency, I put the traditions out there and I give my opinion. So, where was Abraham at the time of Sarah's death? And this is by a person by the name of Mendel Clemson, and they belong to the organization called Kabad.
You're correct in your analysis. There is much discussion among the commentaries about the passing of Sarah and the whereabouts of her husband at the time. Let us examine Abraham's whereabouts before Sarah's passing. Earlier, in the previous chapter, we read about the binding of Isaac. Then we read the following. Abraham then returned to his descendants, and they arose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham settled in Beersheba. The well-known commentator Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, known as Rashi, explains that this is where Abraham was coming from when he came to eulogize Sarah. Abraham had settled temporarily in Beersheba following the binding of Isaac, and then upon receiving word of Sarah's death, he returned to Hebron. Rabbi Yitzhak Bar Yehuda, author of Paneach Raza commentary, explains that following the ordeal, the binding of Isaac, Abraham decided to settle in Beersheba permanently. He sent a message for Sarah to join him, and only then learned that she had died, so he returned to bury her. Rabbi Judah Hakasid says that Abraham was not living in Hebron at that time because he thought that when Sarah heard the story of the binding of Isaac, she would think he had gone crazy.
And this is all rabbinic tradition. When we get to the end of the study, we'll see how valid this really is. But there's some truth to it. Some, but not much. So continuing on, there could be a simple reason for Abraham maintaining 2 homes. 1, the size of his belongings. As with him and Lot, Abraham had much substance and there was a need to maintain 2 locations. They couldn't live together, so they had to separate. So again, over time, Abraham could have accumulated much substance. Let's maintain 2 locations for the sake of that. That's one plausible reason for having 2 locations. Another is maintaining the livestock. The availability of pasture land would cause Abraham and his herdsmen to migrate between the 2 locations, ensuring that the animals had sufficient fodder to eat. This can be verified. We know that men keep moving. You can't be still in this area. You have to go where the grass is green. Otherwise, your animals are going to die. So it's best to have camps in certain locations in order to have a way stop to rest and rejuvenate yourself.
Following instructions, Abraham was instructed to traverse the length and breadth of the land that would eventually become his.
And we know he kept doing that, uprooting his tent pegs from time to time.
And life issues. Building a home can become challenging, and both Sarah and Abraham are not immune from the issues of life. We have Pharaoh, Hagar, Ishmael, Abimelech as examples.
So nobody's immune from it. They could have been affected by it. Who knows?
A little too much. Ever since Abraham, Sarah, Lot, and their entire household left Babylon, they have lived a nomadic lifestyle. Sarah could have gotten tired relocating and decided to domicile in Hebron. No more uprooting and laying our tent pegs in different locations.
And that's tangible. I don't want to move again. And just for the sake of transparency, Devine's uncle and I were having a discussion. I made the mistake and saying 5 years, and everything went EY after that. But misunderstood the company was about moving. Again. Right. So that is a possibility as well. Him coming to mourn for Sarah showed that he did not have permanent residence at that location. Him showing up leaves room for much speculation, but he loves Sarah, and she was a major part of his life for a very long time. So that's the conclusion of the whole situation. So we're in verse 3 to 6.
And Abraham stood up from before his dead, and Abraham spoke to the sons of Het, saying, I am a sojourner and a stranger among you. Give me therefore possession of a burying place among you, and I will bury my dead away from me. And the sons of Het answered to Abraham, saying, Not so, sir, but hear us. You are in the midst of us a king from Elohim. Bury your dead in our choice sepulchres, for not one of us will by any means withhold his sepulchre from you, so that you should not bury your dead there.
So I have these statements here underlined because when I was digging in, something very interesting popped up that had to be looked at. So the bargaining with Chet, a place of rest for Sarah. A mighty prince or king, Abraham has become more than just a righteous man in the land. They address him as, in quotes, Lord, and the translation is Adonai in the Hebrew. Further in the Hebrew Masoretic text, the following phrase is used in addressing Abraham. So they said, Adonai Nasi Elohim. That's how the Nasi Elohim. Yeah, Nasi Elohim. And we have one of the gods there.
I think you have too much fun searching for these pictures.
So what does Adonai Nasi Elohim mean? It means Lord, Prince, God.
So let us
Basic translation.
Yeah. Let us explore this statement further before getting into Abraham paying for the burial land. In a past study, Bereshit Genesis, the existing one, was dedicated to knowing the importance of the divine name Yod-He-Wav-He, or the Tetragrammaton. The use of Elohim implies authority, and the men of the land recognizes it, and it might be playing games with Abraham in order to gain an upper hand in the negotiations. The danger is when man elevates man into these lofty positions, not understanding their ramifications and unintended results, idolatry and blasphemy. In that study, it was highlighted that Moses was elevated to Elohim when the Pharaoh of Egypt was approached, and Aaron was to act as Moses' prophet.
So jumping ahead, because we are not there yet, this is from the Geneva. I used this translation because I liked how it's stated. Then, so this is from Exodus 7:1, and it's from the Geneva. Then the Lord said to Moses, Behold, I have made thee Pharaoh's God, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. So this is in keeping with the other translations, but the important thing here to know is that Moses had a limited role in that position of Elohim, and if you look at the Hebrew, it says he is Elohim. So you can revisit the study to get more feedback on that situation with Elohim being used.
And also the role of a prophet in Genesis 20 that we did. So Moses' role was limited in capacity and for a specific purpose in relation to how the Pharaoh is viewed. With Abraham, this was not bestowed by Yahweh, instead by man for their own purposes. This statement shows that the use of Elohim is a position of authority and not a name to call on. The Septuagint makes it known that he is of Elohim.
Right. So that was a little bit surprising when I saw that in the Hebrew. So the bargain with Chet continues, man becoming God. Man being deified as God is not new. So this is from the New Age belief in the deification of man. And this is by a person by the name of Carol Brooks.
Most people today have heard of the New Age and, if not altogether familiar with its beliefs, are vaguely aware that it has something to do with spirituality, and so it does. New Age is an umbrella term for a wide range of personal and individual beliefs and practices, influenced primarily by Eastern religions, paganism, and spiritism. Perhaps the most common factor in New Age beliefs is that human beings, the earth, and everything that grows and lives on it, in fact, the universe itself, are all part of one non-physical primordial energy called God, and can be identified with the divine. In other words, God is immanent, present in every person and thing. Although repackaged with glossy new covers and modern terminology, the predominant teaching that we are all divine and fully connected to God without need of any mythical redemptive works of Christ remains the same. These teachings have reverberated up and down the corridors of time for centuries, always the same bottom line: you are God. In fact, everyone is a part of God, and each one only has to discover their own divinity. Unfortunately, in their view, man's problems and difficulties stem from the fact that he is unenlightened, i.e., he is completely unaware of his own divinity or has just not experienced it. Therefore, what he needs, perhaps more than anything else, is to raise his level of consciousness, because the higher a person's level of consciousness, the more inner harmony they can achieve, the closer they are to enlightenment. When humanity collectively accepts and experiences itself as being part of God, we not only save ourselves, we save our world. See what influential New Age leaders say about the deity of man.
No, we know a while back a lot of mega church pastors were talking about that we are little G's, and
there's a lot of that in charismatic
and this is dangerous places to walk, because most people don't even understand what it means to be even God, and you want to bestow that authority upon yourself, and many of them don't even have that authority over their homes or in some of the
it's dangerous
areas of society that they're supposed to show that they have a command of. But that's the reality we're dealing with. The deification of man in Clement of Alexandria, some further notes, and this is by Cuthbert Lathy, and this is from a Journal of Theological Studies, and this was back in 1916 when this piece was written. Now, as regards the doctrine of the deification of the Christian, for I cannot treat it as less than a doctrine, and a very vital one at that. Mr. Butterswood is very positive that the earliest Greek fathers, and Clement in particular, could not have been influenced by the scriptures, and that's where he referenced it. There is nothing in either the Old or New Testament which by itself could even faintly suggest that man might practice being a god in this world and actually become one in the next. As for the New Testament, we can imagine now vigorously such language would have been repudiated by, let's see, St. Paul, in whose eyes, in quotes, God's many and Lord's many, could never have seen anything but the distinctive mark of false religion. So the glorification of man is still prevalent, albeit disguised to look like something else. Why do we worship famous people and celebrities? And this is by a person by the name of Sherry DeSalt.
Celebrity worship is becoming such a problem, psychologists even have a name for it. Celebrity worship syndrome, or CWS. Wow. There are different levels of intensity, but a study done at the University of Leicester found that a whopping 36% of British citizens suffer from this disorder. Physiologist and author John F. Shoemaker says, CWS is an obsessive addictive disorder in which a person becomes involved with the details of a celebrity's personal life. In researching this article, I came across one story of a woman who cut her own wrists and throat when her favorite celebrity got engaged. Luckily, she lived to obsess another day, and another extreme of this disorder is people stalking their favorite star. It was a sad day for the world when John Lennon was killed by a fan. While most of us go nowhere near these extremes, there is still a widespread fascination with the famous.
And it's to the proportion now where everything is just bombarding us with that in every form of media that is out there. So this leads us to some prophetic insights that we must take a look at regarding this man in a God's role. So this is from Isaiah 14, verse 9 to 16. I think most of us are aware of what the scripture is all about. And I would like to commentate while Davene is reading it.
Hell from beneath is provoked to meet you. All the great ones have ruled over the earth, have risen up together against you. they that have raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations.
So we have the kings of the nations that are going to be front and center when these events are happening. So they are called great ones, and I purposely highlighted hell because it's different from that word which will be read next.
And great ones, it's a good search to go and look at that, because that's probably not an earthly great one.
Yep.
All shall answer and say to you, you also have been taken, even as we, and you are numbered among us. Your glory has come down to Hades, and your great mirth. Under you they shall spread corruption, and the worm shall be your covering. How has Lucifer, that rose in the morning, fallen from heaven? He that sent orders to all the nations is crushed on the earth. But you said in your heart, I will go up to heaven. I will set my throne above the stars of heaven. I will sit on a lofty mount, on the lofty mountains toward the north.
Right. So when I read this, I say this is sounding a lot like the Psalm 48, 1-2. But a few key things to keep in mind. Heaven is made. It's not some celestial place we go to when we die. I will set my throne above the stars of heaven. The stars of heaven dominion is, the stars dominion is in the heaven, not man's dominion.
And again, interesting study on stars.
Right. So, Psalm 48, 1-2 is Psalm of praise for the sons of Kor on the second day of the week. Great is Yahuwah, and greatly to be praised in the city of our Elohim, in his holy mountain. The city of the great king is well planted on the mountain of Zion, with the joy of the whole earth on the sides of the north. So when you read that he wants to set his lofty mountains towards the side of the north, he wants to go to the Most High's place of dominion to the side of the north. That's his intention.
I will go up above the clouds. I will be like the Most High. But now you shall go down to hell, even to the foundations of the earth. They that see you shall wonder at you and say, this is the man that troubled the earth, that made kings to shake.
No, a lot of people like to equate this with Satan, Lucifer, the devil. They are all different entities, and we mix them up. When we mix them up, we cause problems because everything is one and the same. He is a man. He's nothing more than a man. He may have been imbued with some special abilities, but he's but a man trying to be God.
Lucifer is.
Yeah, Lucifer.
Clarifying what you used.
Lucifer. So moving on. In this instance, the men of the land are equating Abraham to a god, and not he himself bestowing this title upon his vesture. Further, in the culture, it was commonplace to attribute god, king status upon men based on their standing in the society. And this is Religion and Power, Divine Kingship in the Ancient World and Beyond, and this is by Nicole Bushk.
This volume represents a collection of contributions presented during the 3rd Annual University of Chicago Oriental Institute Seminar, Religion and Power, Divine Kingship in the Ancient World and Beyond, held at the Oriental Institute February 23rd and 24th in 2007. The purpose of this conference was to examine more closely concepts of kingship in various regions of the world and in different time periods. The study of kingship goes back to the roots of fields and as anthropology and religious studies, as well as Assyriology and Near Eastern archaeology. More recently, several conferences have been held on kingship, drawing on cross-cultural comparisons. Yet the question of the divinity of the king as God, has never before been examined within the framework of a cross-cultural and multidisciplinary conference. Some of the recent anthropological literature on kingship relegates this question of kings who deified themselves to the background or voices serious misgivings about the usefulness of the distinction between divine and sacred kings. Several contributors to this volume have pointed out the Western Judeo-Christian background of our categories of the human and the divine.
So this is not an old concept. It's something that has been floating around for a long time, but unfortunately misplaced in how we approach it. So it's just to show this is not new. And for the Pharaoh, he considered himself to be a god. The people of ancient Egypt believed their kings were also gods. Modern people refer to ancient Egyptian rulers as pharaohs, but Pharaoh originally referred to the place where the king lived. Palace where the king lived. Pharaoh was not used as a title for the Egyptian ruler until the later part of ancient Egyptian history. But today we use the term to describe all the rulers of ancient Egypt. And when you get into whether it's from the Kemetic or the Ptolemaic perspective. You'll see how these pharaohs considered themselves to be gods, but they were mere men. Who knows? So the bargaining of Chet, a place of rest for Syria.
So Yahweh, in his first set of commandments to Israel, forbid this from happening.
So this is from, jumping ahead again, Exodus 20:4-6.
You shall not make to yourself an idol, nor likeness of anything, whatever things are in the heaven above, and whatever on the earth beneath, and whatever are in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them, for I am Yahweh your Elohim, a jealous Elohim, recompensing the sins of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generation, to them that hate me, and bestowing mercy on them that love me, to thousands of them, and on them that keep my commandments.
So there is reward, not money falling from the sky, in following the instructions the Most High give. He said for us not to do something, don't do it. It's as simple as that. It keeps us out of trouble, believe you me. So returning to Abraham, he had stature and a name, but no land to lay claim. Why would Abraham want to pay for land, after where he stood was promised to him by Yahuwah Elohim? Here is a possible reason for wanting to exchange currency for the plot. And this is from Why Did Abraham Pay Full Price for Sarah's Grave? And this is by a person by the name of William Jackson.
We start off in Genesis 23 with Sarah's death. From here, most of the chapter 23 is dedicated to Abraham's negotiation for her burial plot, which is a cave in Hebron. It seems like the Hittites are trying to give Abraham the cave as a gift, but he is insisting on paying full price. Why would anyone turn down a deal like this? The answer is in the people, not the land. Abraham was a stranger in a strange land, but he was in this strange land for over 50 years now. He knew the people of the region. He did business with them and knew their business practices. We can look at the covenant in Beersheba some 27 years earlier. This is where Father Abraham had some wells, and the Philistines were forcibly taking them from him. Abraham addresses it to their king, Abimelech, but the king denies knowledge of these goings-on. Abraham decides to pay King Abimelech for the wells, even though Abraham owned them. This might have been the only way to peaceably solve this dispute. Beersheba was only 26 miles from Hebron, where Abraham bought the cave for Sarah. I assume Abraham may have been leery of dealing with people in these areas. You know, the type of folks that would renege on a promise if it was in their interest.
So one plausible reason for doing this, there might be more. So still continuing with a place of rest for Sarah, the bargaining with Chet, Abraham might be approaching the situation with caution. It is important to note that Abraham did not let this go to his head, and maybe this is being used as a bargaining ploy.
The title
to extract a lot of money from him. Little do they know that Abraham does not live by money alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the true Elohim. He might ask, in quotes, did not Yahuwah Elohim give Abraham this land as a possession? And the answer is yes, but there are things to take into account. So another picture from when I was in Israel, and it is up at the Golan. 1. The people of the land may not have the full respect of Yahuwah Elohim. So, to Yahuwah Elohim. Though they recognize Abraham as a man of stature and authority, and likely are aware of the true God, their instance of worshiping other gods show that they have no respect and prefer to do their own thing. So, yet they recognize Abraham's God, they still decide to serve their own God. No respect. Abraham is not a company of people as of yet. Ishmael is off doing his own thing and is slowly building up his numbers in becoming a nation. Isaac is not yet married. At this moment, the entire land is not needed, and it would be absurd for him to have the fullness of it. When Israel took possession of the land a few generations later, they were instructed on how to settle it. So this is from Exodus 23:19.
I will not cast them out in 1 year, lest the land become desolate and the beasts of the field multiply against thee.
So if Abraham was to get all this land immediately, it's the same scenario that would have happened to him. So there's a time for everything, and that moment was not the time. It's like having $1 billion in the bank and making a boast about it. What use is having that amount and it's coming to nothing? Abraham having all the land in his current state would be pointless. This promise was for the future when all things are restored. Yahweh Elohim has a set timetable for every aspect of this world to be established. He is not going to act before the appointed time. So we are now in verses 7 to 9.
And Abraham rose up and did obeisance to the people of the land, to the sons of Chet. And Abraham spoke to them, saying, If you have it in your mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hearken to me and speak for me to Ephron the son of Sar, and let him give me the double cave which he has, which is in a part of his field. Let him give it to me for the money it is worth, for possession of a burial place among you.
So the plot of land is almost at hand. Ownership of the plot for Sarah.
Abraham did his recon and knew what he needed for burial. Though in an emotional state, he still has his collective wit about him. Also, he's making advance prep for himself by asking Ephron, the son of Sar, for his particular burial place. It's not lost on Abraham that he is advanced in age and at some point would be taking his last breath. No sense subjecting his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, to the same ordeal of getting a place for him to be buried. 2 birds with 1 stone, or scone.
Yep, so keeping with political correctness, saying 2 birds with 1 stone is now frowned upon, so we use scones as well. But I'm not being politically correct. Who are the current owners of the land which Abraham is seeking to buy a plot for burial? So we have Ephron the son of Sar, Ephron ben Sar, and the name Ephron means fawn-like, and the other name through me, Zohar means tawny. And for those who know Old English, tawny means fair fur or skin of a pale brown complexion. And these are words that I've encountered based on certain other narratives that is out there. And you can look up the word swarthy as well. It's another word that is used also in conjunction with tawny. So the children of Het. So this is Beni Het, the Hebrew. And Het means terror. Surprising, a son of Canaan and the progenitor of the Hittites. The Hittites, and I'm going according to what the history tells us, according to historians, they are a race of people from the Indo-European group who occupied the region that is now termed Turkey. An epic incident between the Hittites and the Egyptians, and it's called the Battle of Kadesh, helped with learning more about the Hittites, as a treaty between the 2 factions was left in stone. According to the scriptures, both these tribes are kin, whereas historical records would say otherwise. Insightful links on the Hittites would be put on the website. So I'm linking it to a video that I encountered many years ago that talks about the Hittites and how that language was used to help decipher other language, the Hittite language. So we are in verse 10 and 11.
Now Ephron was sitting in the midst of the children of Het, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham and spoke in the hearing of the sons of Het and of all who entered the city, saying, Attend to me, my lord, and hear me. I give to you the field and the cave which is in it. I have given it to you before all my countrymen. Bury your dead.
Bury Sarah, your dead, at the gate to negotiate for Sarah's resting state. So in our Genesis chapter 19, Punishment on the Horizon, it was mentioned the importance of the city gate in ancient time, a place to make deals and to seek justice if an individual has been wronged. Also a cool place to hang out and catch up with tongue affairs. At the gate of Hebron, Abraham and his counterpart Ephron, I didn't mean to rhyme there, exchanged words for the field, loud and clear so that everyone can hear. This is a good example of keeping your business in the open in a positive way. It is important for witnesses to observe and pay careful attention to the proceedings. A man's word in most instances does mean something, especially for a man like Abraham, who is full of integrity. Ephron, knowing Abraham's integrity and exploits, would have no issue in giving up the cave, and openly stated he can have it. It would not be known for certain if this was a genuine offer by Ephron, as only Yahuwah Elohim knows the hearts of men. And this is from 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 37 to 40, and this is part of the dedication of the temple.
If there should be famine, if there should be death, because there should be blasting locust, or if there be mildew, and if their enemy oppress them in any one of their cities with regard to every calamity, every trouble, every prayer, every supplication, whatever shall be made by any man, as they shall know each the plague of his heart, and shall spread abroad his hands to this house, then shall you hearken from heaven out of your established dwelling place, and shall be merciful, and shall do and recompense to every man according to his ways, as you shall know his heart. For you alone know the heart of all the children of men, that they may fear you all the days that they live upon the land which you have given to our fathers.
So only the Most High knows the heart of man, and you can fool man, but you can't fool Yah. So moving on, verse 12 to 16.
And Abraham did obeisance before the people of the land, and he said in the ears of Ephron before the people of the land, Since you are on my side, hear me, take the price of the field from me, and I will bury my dead there. But Ephron answered Abraham and saying, No, my lord, I have heard indeed the land is worth 400 silver drachms.
Drachmas.
Okay, but what can this be between me and you? No, do you bury your dead. And Abraham hearkened to Ephron, and Abraham rendered to Ephron the money, which he mentioned in the ears of the sons of Chet, 400 drachmas of silver approved with merchants.
So the payment, Sarah's final resting, a price is offered. In an audible voice, Abraham counters by insisting to Ephron he wants to pay for the burial site. Then, as expected from Ephron, a value is thrown out for the land, 400 shekels or 400 drachmas, which is the equivalent of 10 pounds of silver in weight. Though he, Ephron, was willing to give the land for free, for these men of the land, not Abraham, money has importance. Abraham agreed and gave what was asked for the land by the owner. This deal was ratified by the merchant class of the city and showed a legal precedent for land acquisition. So this is from the Market Law Review, and this was from back in 1937, and from a peer-reviewed paper.
It was very tactful and prudent of him to appeal to the assembly before approaching Ephron himself. In this way, the assembly silently but clearly consented to the contemplated sale. And later on, nobody could charge that Abraham had obtained the property surreptitiously. And I didn't practice that one. Contrarily to the will of the people. In his magnificent reply, Ephron offered to surrender the land with the cave without receiving any remuneration at all. This was another grand oriental gesture, and everyone knew how it was meant. Abraham then asked for the price of the place, not point blank in so many words, but by repeating his will to pay what it was worth. Ephron stated the price, but in good oriental fashion added again what he really did not insist on any payment at all. As soon as the price was mentioned, there was no sort of haggling about it. The price was 400 shekels, and Abraham at once paid the 400 shekels. Abraham was resolved to make the transaction entirely incontestable. Nobody was to say later on that Abraham had not paid the real price, but had screwed it down to less than the actual value of the land. There occurs this phrase, in the presence of all who entered the gates of that city. The gates of the city were the regular places of the assemblies of the people. At the gates of the courts of justice rendered their verdicts. They were in a way the seat of government. In the Orient, we are told, this custom still exists. In ancient Turkey, the High Gate or High Port was the name for the seat of the supreme administration of the realm.
No, after reading, Davene was reading that the situation with the Melchizedek came to mind when after Abraham returned from victory and he told the kings of the plain that none of you are going to ever say that you made me rich. And this sort of fits into that narrative about Abraham's character when he was in the land. So Abraham is willing to pay for what it is. He's not going to haggle with you. Let's get the deed on and keep it moving. So some of these commerce laws may still be in effect in our generation, albeit corrupt because of the hearts of man, and you know the hearts of men. The exchange and acceptance of the money sealed the deal for both parties. So verse 17 and 18.
In the field of Ephron, which was in Double Cave, which is opposite Mamre, the field and the cave which was in it, and every tree which was in the field, and whatever is in its borders round about, were made sure in its borders round about, were made sure to Abraham for a possession before the sons of Chet, and all that entered into the city.
The possession of Sarah's resting, so the possession to bury Sarah. The demarcation of the property Abraham purchased for burial is listed. This is important to know so as to avoid trespass by both parties and any ownership disputes that would arise in the future. Also, there is a tradition to relate events from generation to generation. This event at the gate would have been recounted among the children of Chet. It was urgent for Abraham to get this land for one main reason. Within 72 hours, the body would begin to decay. Embalming was not an option as it was not a custom. Also, taking the body back to the home country would not be advisable either given the decay process. Hence, Abraham's urgency and willingness to pay the price for the land that was offered by Ephron. Additionally, Abraham is a sojourner in the land, and though it is promised by the landlord, which is the Most High, he does not have the capacity to possess it. So this is Psalm chapter 23, verse 1.
A psalm for David on the first day of the week. The earth is Yahweh's and the fullness thereof, the world and all that dwell in it.
So it doesn't matter how much we argue and say whatever, the Most High owns it. We are just paying tenancy for a while. That's the bottom line. So Abraham has nothing to worry about. And this is from Psalm 88:11.
The heavens are yours and the earth is yours. You have founded the world and the fullness of it.
So it's still reinforcing who owns everything. And this is from Deuteronomy 10:14.
Behold, the heaven and the heaven of heavens belong to Yahweh your Elohim, the earth and all things that are in it.
Right, so there's not only heaven, there's heavens of heavens. If you go back to King Solomon, when he dedicated the temple, he even said the heavens of heavens cannot contain thee.
And he owns it all.
And the heavens is the dominion of the stars. We need to keep this in mind. Unfortunately, doctrines have realigned the way how we think about things, so hence a lot of error when we approach scriptures. So now we're in Genesis 19 and 20.
After this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the double cave of the field, which is opposite Mamre. This is Hebron in the city of Canaan. So the field and the cave which was in it were made sure to Abraham for possession of a burying place by the sons of Chet.
Sarah's burial, Sarah's final resting place. Abraham officially owns the burial plot and lays the body of his beloved wife in it. A lingering question concerning the choice of location is, one, why a cave? Abraham would have easily got his servants to dig a traditional burial place anywhere in the land. Abraham choosing a cave can be for the following reasons. Why was a burial place so important in the Bible?
Answer, Genesis 49:29-32. We read Jacob's instructions about his burial place. I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, and the cave that is in the field at Machpelah, to the east of Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite to possess as a burying place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and there I buried Leah. The field and the cave that is in it were bought from the Hittites. Obviously, Jacob was very concerned with his burial place, and he knew the exact history of the spot he had chosen. When Joseph was approaching death, he also gave instructions concerning his remains in Genesis 50:25.
One reason for the burial place was so important to the patriarchs has to do with Elohim's promise of the land. Elohim had promised that Abraham's descendants would possess the land where he had been buried. Jacob knew that if he was buried in Canaan, his tomb would forever remain with the, in quotes, promised land. The fact that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob would all be buried there, 3 generations, emphasized their belief in Elohim's promise to give this land to their family. So another plausible reason for this possession, with this possession being acquired for money, is that they are strangers in a land and would like for their dead, every one of his familiar household, to be buried undisturbed from others. It is important to note that, in quotes, the Anointed One was also laid to rest in a cave, undisturbed and belonging to someone else. So the cave belonged to someone else. His sojourn was brief on the earth, that's the Anointed One. Now Sarah is waiting on the resurrection in the land that was promised, when Israel is regarded and Yahuwah Elohim fulfills the promise made to them. And Hebron means association. So the association of men gathered to discuss the plot of land. So Sarah's burial in memoriam.
There are many traditions about Sarah that are typically rendered concerning her life. A web search would present many discussions on those traditions. It is more important to mention Sarah and the role she had in Abraham's life. To mention her name is also to memorialize her.
So Sarah's memorial. She left Babylon to follow her husband because he heard a voice that reached out to him. Forsake your father's house and journey to a land that I would show you, he was told, and Sarah was in step with him. She departed with him, leaving her familiar life behind and looking ahead to one unknown to her. She trusted her husband's leadership and authority and had his respect when her opinions were expressed. She was childless but still filled with joy. She was content to be barren, though it was a shame in her society. She was promised to bear a child with her beloved Abraham, as the Holy One asserted. Disbelief and taking matters into one's own hands yielded an undesired outcome of a wanted but unintended son. When the promise was reaffirmed again, she laughed in her heart, thinking, "Not me at this old age." When the son of promise came, she stood strong to preserve her name. Never did she think she'd hold her own child. She was filled with joy, nursing her own baby boy, letting the world know that Yehovah Elohim made her whole. Through thick and thin, she walked with him, trusting in Yehovah to do his will. Your time with us was not a bust. The latter part of your life was spent in Yah's trust. So now you wait for that date when the shofar blows for you to awake.
And now your rhyme is done?
The memorial,
on the one.
The memorial is done, so keeping track. So the timeline is very important. So I've extended the Masoretic and Septuagint timelines. So a few things to keep in mind about both timelines. All of the ages used to continue the timeline from Abraham and Sarah is obtained from the following scriptures. So in Genesis 11:26, and Terah lived 70 years and begot Abraham, Nahor, so that's the first point on the timeline. And then in 17:17, Genesis 17:17, Abraham fell on his face and laughed and spoke in his heart, saying, "Shall there be a child to one who is 100 years old, and shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear?" So we are getting the ages of everyone being established. Next, the age of Abraham when Terah, his father, arrived in Haran is not known from the Torah. The book of Jubilees give that information.
So Jubilees 12:12-16, and in the 60th year of the life of Abraham, that is in the 4th week, in the 4th year thereof, Abram rose by night and burned the house of the idols, and he burned all that was in the house, and no man knew it. And they arose in the night and sought to save their gods from the midst of the fire. And Haran hasted to save them, but the fire flamed over him, and he was burnt in the fire, and he died in Ur of the Chaldees before Terah his father. And they buried him in Ur of the Chaldees. And Terah went forth from Ur of the Chaldees, he and his sons, to go into the land of Lebanon and into the land of Canaan. And he dwelt in the land of Haran, and Abram dwelt with Terah his father in Haran 2 weeks of years. ...
Terah's sojourning in Haran is somewhat conflicting between the Septuagint, the Masoretic, and the Samaritan Pentateuch. Thus, the age of Terah's death is open for interpretation. So when we look at the Masoretic, which is the Quran, and the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died. So it's making it seem as though his total lifespan was 205 years in totality. In the Septuagint and all the days of Terah, in the land of Haran, so it seems as though Haran, his sojourning was 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. So then we have some years to account for outside of his dwelling in Haran, which needs to, get factored in. And then the Samaritan Pentateuch gives a whole different scenario. And the days of Terah were 540 years and 100 years, and Terah died in Haran. So the Samaritan Pentateuch is taking out a lot of time from the life of Abraham.
Of Terah.
Of Terah, sorry. But at the time of Sarah's death, Abraham was 136 years old, Isaac is 36 years old, and Ishmael is 50 years old. So that whole narrative from the rabbinic perspective about Sarah being distraught and all that kind of stuff, when you look at Isaac was a lad. That's a specific age. He was not an adult, but he was not a young child either. He was a lad. So let's put him between 12 and 15, somewhere in that gap. So with that being said, all the narratives about Sarah being distraught and that stuff does not fit. So hence the reason why when we hear many of these traditions coming from certain sources, we should take a second look. Hence the reason we have these times given, so we can just do some simple calculations and figure out if any of these narratives fit what we should believe. And from where I sit, it doesn't. We have basic time to calculate and figure it out. So this is the timeline extended, and it will be up on the website as well for you guys to look through. So this is from the Masoretic, and again from our earlier studies, if we go with the Masoretic timeline, everything concerning Shem being a Melchizedek and every other doctrine, you can take it, you can run with it, because it fits the timeline for the Masoretic.
So that's why they go with it.
Right, so that's why they go with it. And every other story you would hear about Abraham sending sending him back to learn from Shem and all that stuff. You can take it, run with it, if you follow the Masoretic. If you follow the Septuagint, no way. These men are long gone, dead. Life continues, and it is what it is. And what I've done as well is put in the ages of everybody into the timeline, so you'll have an idea of who came about when. And as I said, with Terah, it's a little bit of a problem because of his age uncertainty. So I extended to the maximum at that I could. It's not going to affect anything per se. And that's it. A time to lament and mourn. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments, and observations?
I had an observation.
Hang on. We're going to give you the mic.
Thank you. Another observation I had about somebody not taking a piece of land that wasn't his without a purchase price was when there was a plague at the end of 2 Samuel, and David said, "I will not offer anything that I have not paid for." So there's another instance there.
It's nice when you read the scriptures and you can make these connections. You know, one person can't make them all. Hence the reason why it's important to have these connections and put it into the narrative, because everything fits. Any other observations, comments, questions?
I was just going to add to that. Like, we all know what it feels like to have landlords and people hoarding things over you. And Yah's desire is always to have his people free and to be able to stand in integrity. And also just the spiritual ramification of anybody who's holding anything over you. There's no freedom for people in that, right? Even spiritually, with the whole, he doesn't like that Nicolaitan system or anything along
talking
those
about
lines,
that.
right? So,
That was
break down Nicolaitan again.
That was very insightful, because when somebody has something over here, they can take advantage of you. Yeah. And that could be another plausible reason why Abraham wanted to ensure he paid for that land, so nobody holds anything over his head. So Nicolaitan, Davene and I had a discussion about Nicolaitans recently, what the word means. It's found in Revelation, and it's a compound word from the Greek, Nike.
Goddess of Nike.
Yes.
Which
yes,
is like where lording yes. over you.
Right. So the goddess of war, Nike, and laity, the people. So it's lording over the people. So that's what Nicolaitan means.
Yeah. So now it gets a little bit more context if we apply that into organized religion. Dun dun dun.
Right. So unfortunately, the people have been conquered by those who hold themselves in religious authority, and it is what it is.
Thank you. Considering the book of Philemon, I didn't understand why the book of Philemon was here in the New Testament. I couldn't get it. But as I read through it, thinking about things from a Hebraic perspective, it sounds like Onesimus was an escaped slave. But how did you become a slave, and what did that mean? It would have been most likely the fact that he wasn't able to pay his debt. Therefore, he lent his services for the next whatever length of time was to pay off his debt. But you couldn't own another fellow Israelite. You could not own.
No.
But so here he's run away, but it almost seems as he entered into the same faith of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he might have been of Israel, but not of faith, in my perspective as I'm looking at this. So here now Paul is saying, take him back as a son to me, and account his debt to me. But there was an erasing of anything that we would have ever related to ownership of a person. He couldn't be owned. Mm-hmm. So he was set free. And Paul says, account his debt to me. And you owe me your whole life, by the way.
And hence the reason there is the kinsman redeemer. And hence the reason why Israel was sold for nothing. And they would be rebought for nothing. Everything in context.
Amen.
Yes. Anything else? No? Okay, you want to pray?
So our Father, our King, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for your presence. We thank you for your favor and everything. As we are about to close things down, we ask that everyone who came out tonight, that they make it back home safely, and that you continue to be the authority in their lives and lead them in your truth. And we thank you for everything, and we thank you for tonight, and let your will be done in your name, through Yeshua. Amen.